Namaskaram, everyone, and welcome to the Awakened Soul podcast, a place where we integrate ancient yogic wisdom into modern living to help ease your spiritual awakening journey. I'm your co-host and spiritual seeker, Dr. Crystal Asong.
I'm your co-host as well as a spiritual teacher, Dennis DeVos.
Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning.
Very nice to see you again.
Wow.
It's been a while, huh?
Looking brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. How are you feeling today?
Amazing.
Right.
Really amazing.
Great. We have another very interesting topic to talk about today. It's something that I'm not really familiar with, to be honest, and I'm not really sure what we're going to talk
What
about.
kind of topic are we talking about?
I'll reveal it in a very short while, but
Right.
I'm just going to let the conversation flow and see where it takes us.
Fair
right?
enough, yeah.
Yeah, even though I'm not familiar with it, but I think it's intriguing nonetheless. And today we'll be talking about spiritual paths.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
spiritual paths. So we'll be delving into juicy questions such as what is a spiritual path? How can one identify their spiritual path? And is there even such a thing as a spiritual path? Right? Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Really looking forward to
good.
this conversation.
Let's go. Yeah.
Looking forward. So let me just, start off by clearing the definitions. What is a spiritual path? Are you referring to destiny? Is it the same thing as destiny? And is there even such a thing as a spiritual path in the first place?
Okay. You're throwing me a big question right off the bat, right?
No pressure.
Help me out first. Help me out.
Yeah, sure.
What have you learned or heard or understood about spiritual path? Let's start here first. Just to give me a few a few words of your own.
I mean, the first thing that came to mind when you talk about spiritual path is destiny.
Okay.
Another one is the awakening journey. Someone going through the dark soul of the night.
Okay.
Dark night of the soul, yeah. Dark night of the soul.
Dark soul will be something else, yeah.
Yeah, that's a different topic altogether. The dark night of the soul.
Right. I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah, where, their life as they know it starts to crumble down and they start to question all their previous
I think you're
beliefs
familiar
and
with this
truths.
topic.
I mean, in that context, yes, I am. But are we talking about it? So, awakening, destiny. Other than that, when we talk about spiritual path, people always refer to probably like astrology, numerology, right?
Okay.
Like based on certain time of birth, date, and place, you have a certain path.
Is that? I see.
That's what I heard. So I'm curious to know what
All
you
right.
think. Yeah.
Okay. Now, thank you for indulging me in that, right? I'll start with something simple. Spiritual path, okay, is not separate from life path. Can we start with that?
Okay.
Okay. See, we like to distinctly categorize things for certain reasons. Okay. This is specialized into, as this is that. We have different names for different things. Like you mentioned, Dark Night of the Soul. That also is a name for something, a phase or process that people go through. Right. So let's start off with this. Spiritual path is not separate from life path. Okay. You and I, as much as we are aware, we are alive right now, correct? We're living. Okay. We may be doing different things, we may be into different things, but essentially, fundamentally, we're alive. So if everyone who's tuning in and listening, if you can look at the spiritual path, whether you're on it already or not, you may think, I'm not ready yet. You may think I'm already on it. I've been practicing this and that for 10 years, 5 years, or whatever. Good. But the point is, spiritual path essentially must be life path. This much must be established first. Okay. Before we go into the detailed, specialized categories of this and that. But this is the...
And this applies to everyone, even though some may say they're not spiritual or they don't believe in such a thing. But essentially, all of us are on a spiritual path or
as
a
long
life path.
as you are alive, conscious that you are alive, you are living, breathing, kicking, walking, whatever, you are alive, then what we understand as your life path, wherever life brings you, takes you, right? That is the spiritual path. That is one aspect of it. At least fundamentally, we must establish this, right? Now, to simplify this, Okay, it may sound like an oversimplification, but I think this is a good start. To simplify the spiritual path, we can look at it from two angles. One is how you live your life, your day to day. Because the moment when we say spiritual path, people think of an ultimate goal, like the
Yeah.
top of Himalayas, or maybe somewhere in Jerusalem, or someone in Mecca. People think of, or maybe outer space, right? People
Or
think of
even
somewhere.
enlightenment,
They think of
probably.
something, somewhere, or some big words, right? Before we get there, the first aspect of spiritual path is how you live your life, day in, day out. Breath in, breath out. How you live your life. So how you live your life, if we break it down further, just to you know get the gist out of then how you are within yourself, that is the first thing about spiritual path. The second thing is where life takes you, where life takes you, which is a question mark, right? You do not know where life takes you. So these two combined is what spiritual path is. One, we look at it inwardly, because how you experience life within yourself, day in, day out, your experience of life. How do you live your life? How conscious are you? How happy are you? How joyful are you? How loving are you? How present are you? That definitely experiential. Whatever is experiential must be inward. So the first aspect of spiritual path is inward. The second aspect, as I'm suggesting, is where life takes you. Uh, there is an it's both an outward and inward element to
Mm,
this.
yeah.
Where life takes you, outwardly, obviously, we do not know where you'll go, where you end up, who you'll meet, what other worldly experience you'll have, all these things outwardly, right? But one thing is for sure, the outward uh, destination, so called, right? One thing is for sure. For all of us, regardless whether you're spiritual, religious, agnostic, atheist, whatever, death, the outward, the ultimate outward destination is death. Can you agree with me on this?
Yeah.
But there's also an inward element to where life takes you. Now, when we say where life takes you, if I may use capital L to the word life, at first, who you transform into, who you become. But ultimately, this is not where it stops. Transformation is not a big word. I mean, it's a word that we use. From transformation to transcendence, and then finally, uh, I have to use a big word now.
Mm-hmm.
What we understand as enlightenment, the highest attainment, total annihilation of who you are not, total dissolution, union. That is the ultimate. So there's also an inward element, but there's also an outward element to the second aspect of spiritual path, as in where life takes you. So you were saying destiny, right?
Yeah.
So if I may open up this topic of destiny, I was telling someone this. They were asking me, what is some in your own language? The person was asking me, what are some non-negotiables in life, like things that you cannot, not to say cannot change, but like it's gonna happen. It's just gonna
Oh.
happen, non-negotiable, right? It's you may talk around it, you may try to plan around it, but still it's gonna happen. So I told them these non-negotiables are not things that you can change, and there are only two. One is your divinity, the other is your destiny. These are two
That
things
you
which are
cannot change.
you cannot change.
Mm.
You can change who you are now, so called, right? You can change your behavior, your attitude, your mindset, your perception. You can change a lot of other things, how your body looks and how your body feels. You can change all these things. But there are two things where you cannot change. Absolutely. You do not have, and not even an ounce of control over. Okay. The first thing is your divinity, which is still a big question mark at this point. What is it? What is your divinity, right?
Yeah.
But I want to just put it on the table first. And the second thing is your destiny. Now, please, this destiny is a capital D, just to you know distinctly say that this is not the destiny where we're taught to, oh, your destiny is to become, to grow, to achieve this, and whatever successes and whatever we understand as the ultimate goal in life. That's not the destiny I'm talking about. This destiny with a capital D is your true nature, that kind of destiny that you cannot change. You can change all these things about you, right? But that the ultimate is unchanging. I know it's a bit deep. It's just a big topic. I have to use
Mm.
some,
So you're saying our destiny is our true nature.
correct. That kind of destiny.
Oh, because usually
I'm not
people,
talking about future kind of, oh, my
yeah,
future, what
that's
my
what
future
usually
holds.
people
K Sarah,
associate.
K Sarah, not that kind of
Mm.
destiny. This destiny, capital D, is your true nature. And that you cannot change. That you can only experience, you can only come to experience and realize. Once you realize it, once you experience it within yourself, it's done. The work is done. Whatever we call a spiritual path, spiritual progression, spiritual growth, spiritual work, it's done. Once you get to that.
Mm.
So, two things that you cannot change, your divinity and your destiny. I think over the conversation later, I'll divulge more on what your destiny means. But for now,
Mm.
let's keep it a bit, ambiguous, mysterious as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or do you want to slowly unpack what divinity means, what destiny means? I know you've mentioned
Right.
earlier very briefly, but since we're on the topic,
Okay. See, if we go by outward destiny, again, I'm just using simple words. Outward means worldly, physical, anything on the outside of you, physical, worldly. Inward means within you. That's all, right? It's not too big of this two distinctions. So outward destiny, there's only one. Sure, in between there can be many other things. There can be many other things, but ultimately outward destiny, there's only one, which is death, physical death, worldly death, and that which is inescapable, inevitable, happens to the best of us, right? So we're not talking about that destiny, obviously, because that destiny only one outcome, so as to speak, which
yeah.
is death. So some people say, right, life is a race. They may not say it word for word, but that's how they are. That's how they're living their life. Life is a race.
Yeah.
If life is a race, then you have to be at the finishing line, isn't it?
Mm.
What's at the finishing line?
Death.
Death. You know it. You may run faster than everyone else. That means um, you're just gonna get to the finishing line faster.
Mm.
So we know the quality of life is not what comes at the end. It's what is here and now and what's in between. See, on a tombstone, if you're lucky enough to have a tombstone inscribed with your name on it upon death, and there's the year you're born and there's the year that you finally, you know, cease to exist. And there's a dash in between. The most important thing is not the years that you have lived, how many years. It's not that, oh, too old, this to this, 90 years, 100 years. It's not the number of years. It's the dash in between. And the dash is the process, the present. That is the most important thing. So it's not death that we're after. No one is after death. We know, we come to terms with it, we accept that one day it will eventually happen. So this outward destiny, so called, is just death. But the inward destiny, that is realization of our true nature. That is what we're after. That is the destiny that we're talking about in
Mm.
terms of spiritual path.
The
Okay.
realization of our true nature.
Absolutely.
Even though some may not even be aware that that is the path that they're on, the
At
things that they're
least
going
at
through.
least the first aspect of spiritual path, they must be aware. To some extent, they must be aware, which is, if you remember, I was just saying two things, right? The first thing is how you live your life every day in, day out, breath in, breath out. How are you this moment? As long as you're alive, embodied,
Mm.
how you live your life. That is spiritual path, because spiritual path is not separate from life path. Don't try to separate these two. If you separate these two, then your spiritual path is just some made up nonsense. It's just some imaginative, vivid um, belief that you have gathered from somewhere.
Mm.
Right? Oh, this is the path that leads me to heaven. This is the path that leads me to the Garden of Eden. No point, really. So I think you've heard me say this before in some context. I don't remember specifically when, but it was a Sunday school, and the school invited the priest over to give a talk. So our priest was asking the whole class, and these are 6, 7 years old. Does anyone here know how do we go to heaven? Have you heard of this?
No,
Really?
not yet. Yeah.
Okay. So our little Mary raised her hand eagerly. She said, "We have to do good." Oh, everyone clapped. Yes, you're right, Mary. Then little Jane said, "We have to help the elderly." Very good. Amazing. Everyone clapped. Then Jack said, 6, 7 years old. And Jack said, "We have to study the Bible." Whew. The priest loved this answer. Fantastic. Best answer by far. Who else? Everyone said a few things, okay, in that notion, in that context. Finally, this one boy was very timid. He looked very timid. He looked very quiet. So, the kid over there, what's his name? Oh, everyone said Tommy. Little Tommy. How do we get to heaven? What do you think we should do? We should die first.
Ah.
And everyone fell silent.
Mm.
So, those who can't wait to get to heaven, I'm just saying, this will sound a bit harsh. You have to die first. Whether you die a physical death, or even better, if you can die an egotistical death, that determines. Because the prerequisite to go to heaven is you have to die first, right?
Mm.
That itself, that is the spiritual path as well.
Mm.
Can you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. Earlier you were talking about divinity. What do you mean by that? Do you want to just briefly explain
Okay.
divinity?
See, our imagination has led us to believe that divinity means some man, usually man, in most cultures a man, and on top of that, white. Not just white, they're drawn in white as well. Maybe some with wings, without wings, white beard. And in the pearly gates, maybe with a throne, right? Some clouds, some angels singing. That is divinity
Mm.
in people's perception. I'm not saying that's not divinity. I'm just saying, if truly, can I use the word God in this
Yeah,
conversation?
sure.
If truly God created the world, okay, then why is not everything? Why isn't everything divine? Why isn't everything already sacred in its own nature, as creation intends? Why isn't everything already by itself, without modification, divine? I'm talking about a stone, a pebble, a blade of grass, a tree, any animal for that matter, a cloud, the existence itself, you, us. Divinity is our nature, right? Just that we have not given enough attention to this aspect. We have not thought about this long and hard enough, and we have not realized this. So conveniently, we import divinity from the books, from certain passages, from certain prophets, from certain other places, because it's convenient. We don't want to do the search, soul stirring search. We don't want to do it. Too much work. So we import it conveniently. This is how God is. This is how heaven is. This is how we make conclusions about everything, right? So divinity simply means that which cannot be further modified or changed, that which is in its original essence complete, pure, unblemished, and cannot be diminished. That is what divinity is. Okay. So by that simple definition, all creation must be divine. Because if it comes from the hands of the divine, we can call it God, creator, universe, Brahman, reality, existence, nature, capital, yeah? Then everything that has come from that must be divine. May not look like it, but if you can look beyond the veils of physicality, beyond the illusion of what you see with the two physical eyes, then you can access this. You can equally experience the divinity of everything. Just for context, just to make it more, digestible. If you go into a forest, you walk into a forest. Obviously, what's in the forest? Trees, flora, fauna, right? Different species of biodiversity, right? But if I were to ask you a silly question, I mean, it's not all that silly. We are like this, right? I were to ask you, which tree is better? Maybe we are looking at one patch of the forest, both of us, and we say, which tree is better? Do you have an answer?
I don't think so.
It's stupid. You may have
Yeah.
an answer, an educated answer. Okay, this tree is rarer, or this tree is older,
In that
or this tree
sense.
is more beautiful, or this tree is taller, or this tree has fruits that can somehow benefit humanity. Whatever your contextual answer is, but still it's silly.
Yeah.
It's silly. If the tree can understand you, it's, I don't know, it's gonna slap you, or it's not gonna give you oxygen or something, right? It's silly. Like, which tree is better? I mean, taller, maybe you can, it's not that subjective. Objectively, you can say this is taller. That's fine. But which tree is better? Stupid. But that is how we've taken our lives to be. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So divinity means it does not segregate. It does not differentiate like this. Which tree is better? Which life form is better? Is this rock better than that rock? I mean, bigger you can measure it, heavier you can measure it, colors you can measure it, but better. Which tree is more complete? Even a baby tree is complete. Even that old tree that's dying is complete. You understand? You
Yeah.
cannot segregate it. So divinity is something that you cannot further segregate. It is completion, completeness. It is pure essence.
And that is our true nature.
That is the spiritual path to realizing and experiencing this within. Okay.
Speaking of spiritual paths, is it the same for everyone? And is it fixed? Can we change it?
Okay. See, you've tried many things in your life. May or may not be in the name of spirituality, strictly speaking. Okay. Some things you may have tried certain aspects of psychology, biohacking your subconscious, reprogramming your mind, learning this and that. Then after that you may have learned breathing. After that you may have learned certain postures, certain practices supposedly that helps with your spiritual growth, or certain aspects of personal growth. You know what I mean? So we've tried different things, different things. So definitely in this context, it's good. It's good. It's fantastic that you're trying certain things to find out what works, what does not work, what is compatible, what is not, maybe not so compatible at this point. You can try, and you have to. Honestly, you have to try different things. Okay. So the spiritual path is definitely not a fixed path. It cannot be a fixed path.
There's no like a fixed
There
point or
are
destination.
easily, just for the sake of conversation and language, there are easily millions of paths. But the destination that awaits, the ultimate destination, which is where I use the word destiny with a capital D, that is only one. Like, if it helps you to visualize this, there are many paths up to a mountain peak. Many different paths. You want to go underground, you want to take left, right, whatever. You want to go from a different mountain and take a leap. There's really too many possibilities. But if the ultimate goal, which we are speaking here, destiny with a capital D, or destination in terms of spirituality, that is the mountain peak. That only is one. But the paths are many. And there will come a time in your own path as well where the paths will converge. And that is when you know it's near. Once you're getting, say, a few steps away from the destination or destiny that we're speaking of, then all paths will converge like this. Okay. So yoga is such a path. Yoga is the pathful path, I'm making this up.
Yeah.
Means there are different, easily hundreds and thousands of different paths converging in the name of yoga. Yoga means union. So it's also uniting, the unification of all paths into one, and finally that happens. Union happens. Ultimate happens. Oneness happens. These are big words. Enlightenment happens. Okay. But the paths, many, but they all converge. Okay.
I want to ask you about what are the common stages or milestones in a spiritual path. But before that, since you mentioned yoga, because I just want to make it clear for our audiences, right? When we talk about yoga, people always have this misconception about it being an exercise or an acrobatic exercise of posture, twisting your body, bending your joints or whatever. Yeah, just very briefly, when you talk about yoga, what do you mean by that?
Okay. Good that you're helping with the clarification. I appreciate it. So yoga is definitely not tying yourself into a knot. Okay. I can barely do that myself. It's also not standing on your head or bending your body to look like a contortionist. Okay. Leave that to the experts. Yoga in its essence means union. Yoga is not religious, it has no belief system of its own. You want to call yoga a way of life, I'm fine with that. Okay? But don't call it a philosophy, please. Because the moment you call it a philosophy, it means in some ways, inevitably, there's some elements of beliefs in it. In some ways. There's some good elements also of the word philosophy. But so I would, you know, not endorse the word philosophy for yoga. A way of life is fine. A spiritual path, spiritual process is fine. Very good. So essentially, yoga is about disentangling the knots, disentangling what you are not. And the more you disentangle, it's a process. So it takes work, it takes striving, it takes definitely time. It's a legit path, right? A path that has many sub paths into it. So it's about dismantling whatever unawareness has built over time, over lifetimes, whatever nonsense that you have accumulated. Okay, let's call it karma for now. So yoga is a proper, full-fledged path, like this, complete path, wholesome, to bring you into union with what we know or understand as God. So a complete union with that. Let me tone down the word, replace the word God with life, capital L. For you to come into a total union with life. Does that sound better? Okay.
Yeah.
A total union with existence. A total union with all of universe. Like this. Because when I say God, some people still think of a person. A
Yeah.
being, a white
True.
bearded being.
Someone up in the sky.
So yoga fundamentally is a scientific. Okay, when I say scientific, like where? What's the proof? Where's the reference? Where's the journal? Where's the research?
Yeah.
Not that kind of scientific. It's an inner science, an inward science. You have your textbook outward science, I'm fine. We're talking about an inward science. So yoga is an inner science for you to realize your ultimate, but in the process you have to disentangle. Instead of tying more knots, okay, twisting your body like this and that, you are disentangling those knots, dismantling those past karmic substances. You're doing all those things in the process of getting there. All right.
And yoga is one of the ways or one of the paths towards the ultimate, towards the peak of the mountain, which is realizing our true nature. right?
Yeah.
So
See, with all due respect, I know there are other schools of thought, right? There are other proper, practices as well. For example, we have, if depending which culture that you ascribe to, we have Taoism.
mm,
Uh, Definitely, we have, you know, Tantra. We have so many different paths. The path of devotion, which is not limited to just what is being practiced in the far. I mean, in the East, yoga. Um, there is certain schools of mysticism, right? There are many ways, really. There are many ways. But yoga would, in this context, yoga would be an umbrella term for all these ways. Anything that is humanly possible. You can it can come in the name of a different language. It can come in the name of a different culture. Um, but still, yoga embraces all, and it definitely still uh, ties wonderfully under yoga. I'm not trying to just say yoga is everything, but
yeah.
yoga is everything, in a way. Not trying to say who wins it, who is older, it's not a competition, but
Mm,
anything that can be um, explored in this human system, okay? Anything that can be explored so that we attain to our highest, anything has been explored in yoga. This is why I'm trying to give it its due credit. So all the systems, essentially, all the paths, essentially, they converge under yoga, if I may. That's what I'm trying to say.
mm-mm.
Mm.
Yeah. And on that path towards that convergence, are there stages or
Mm.
common milestones that people usually go through in their spiritual journey?
So you have to understand what a spiritual journey is, very briefly, right? Of all the journeys that you can take in the world, you're trying to get somewhere. From here, from Kuala Lumpur, you go to Penang. From here, you go to Singapore. From somewhere, you go to somewhere. From your home, you go to the office. You're going somewhere, correct?
Mm-hmm.
When we say spiritual path, honestly, I'm not just playing with words here. When we say spiritual path, it's not a physical path. What is spiritual? Non physical. That which is non physical. At least a dimension that is not physical. Then we say it's spiritual, right? Physical, material, you got that worldly path. You're going somewhere, different destinations every day. But when we talk about the spiritual path, then honestly, we're going nowhere.
Mm.
I'm not playing with words. You're not going somewhere. I mean, language-wise, we're still saying I'm getting somewhere, but the somewhere is more precisely and very aptly to put it, you're going nowhere. If you're going nowhere, okay, because it's an inward journey, it's a non-physical journey, you're going nowhere. How can you measure it? Yeah, we can try to talk around it. We can talk about it, different processes, so-called different stages. But still, I want to open you up further. Like really, listeners who are tuning in, when you're going nowhere, how can you measure it objectively? You cannot.
Mm, yeah.
How can you measure nothing? That's what I'm trying to say. Something you can measure. Its weight, its size, its texture. It's you can whatever measure scale of measurement. But how can you measure something that is nothing by nature? Okay, so that's the spiritual path. So only you know whether you are progressing or you are stagnated.
Yeah.
Only you know. Of course, a guru may know as well. A guru is uh, one who is already there,
Mm.
which is the nowhere that I spoke of. He's already there, the nowhere. He knows. He can help you. But let's say we're speaking individually, then don't try to measure it. You can only know if you're progressing. That's all that matters. Am I progressing? Even to that extent, progression does not matter that much. Am I conscious right now? Am I
Mm.
fully living my life right now to whatever extent that I'm capable of, that my capacity allows? Am I present, alive, conscious, embodied? Okay. If your answer is yes, it does not matter. Your progression does not matter because this is progression, right? So I just think generally the world, even when it comes to this, spiritual topics, spiritual path, spiritual destination, we're very linear about it. Linear in the sense we're thinking of step one, step two, step three,
Yeah,
milestone one, milestone two, milestone three.
going
It's they're
upwards
like,
and then
oh, I have to travel. Mount Everest is how many hundred kilometers above the sea level, or thousands. I actually do not know the exact number. I'm halfway there. I'm quarter. I'm three quarter up. We're so linear about things, logical.
mm,
Spiritual journey is not like this. You try to be linear about it, you try to measure it. Oh, it's gonna get hot. I mean, it's gonna get troublesome.
yeah, I've experienced it in my life as well.
Tell us
Like,
about it.
I mean, before I was on my my spiritual healing journey, right? I used to think that life was linear. Like when I once I go to school, then I have to ace the exam and then have to graduate, go to work, get married, have kids, retire and die. Like this whole linear timeline.
Yeah.
But after I've been on this spiritual path for quite a while now, I realized that nothing is fixed and life is a flow that is ever changing. And just when I thought that I've finally made it,
Mm.
things just shift and I have to keep on changing gears and shifting and pivoting my direction. And it, but it's I realize that it's if we're really in tune with the universe and its messages and nudges, and with our inner being, then it's always going to take us to the place that we're meant to be. And speaking of that, just for our audience, right, who are listening, how do we know that we're on the right path? And is there even such a thing as a right path or a wrong path?
Mm. So I'm more than slightly unorthodox when it comes to this. I don't want people to be dead sure about where they are, what they're doing. I don't want people to be dead sure. Okay. Because dead sure in my language means you have made a conclusion about something that you do not fully know. You may know a bit. You may have experienced a little something, but you do not fully know, honestly. So I rather people come to terms with their confusion. It's like making peace with ignorance. I know that I've been ignorant. Just listen to this sentence, right? How it sounds. Like in a way you could say, I am aware of my ignorance. The moment you're aware of your ignorance, you are no longer ignorant. Does that make sense?
Mm.
The moment you associate with your ignorance, okay, you're no longer ignorant in that context. So I'd rather people associate with their ignorance than associate with what they already know. So don't make conclusions. That's all I'm saying. I'd rather people be confused about it, like uncertain about it,
Mm.
like whether I'm on the right path, whether this is happening because I've done this, and it's okay. Give it question mark.
But I think it's a lot. That's the thing that a lot of people cannot stand, right? The confusion and not knowing where they're going, the unfamiliar path or territory. How can one rise above this?
You have to understand this clearly. Even if you have clearly mastered all the knowledge in the world, you have read all the books in the library, you have memorized everything that Google contains, right? You only know less than 1% of the universe. Once you establish this underlying truth that only 1% of this universe is physical in nature, that means the rest of the 99% is non-physical. We're just using the word non-physical, but we're not sure. We can use big words: gray matter, black matter, dark matter, whatever, God particle. We're just using words that this physicists have told us, but still we don't know a damn thing about this. Okay. But the point remains that even if you know everything there is to know about this world physically, you only know less than 1%. So where's the 99%? You're missing it. You're unaware of it. Or we could say you're ignorant about it. So I'd rather people identify or associate with their ignorance in this context. Means I actually don't know life. I don't know a damn thing about life and world and everything. But you must be on the path of seeking. You must be in the process of actively exploring, opening up, unfolding yourself, humbling yourself so that you can taste and one day maybe totally experience and realize it. But you must be on the active path of seeking. Okay. So the point is, I rather people not know, but seeking, confused. If you're not confused, you will not seek. If you don't have big burning questions, you don't have the innate longing within you to find out the truth, you will not seek. So confusions are good, questions are good, especially in the beginning stages. In fact, across all stages, unless you have totally awakened and realized, then we call you a Buddha. One who is beyond the mind is a Buddha. One who has awakened from the mind is a Buddha. Okay. Then that's fine. Fantastic. Your job is done. Otherwise, seek. Seeking means you are opening up possibilities of knowing, new possibilities. Otherwise, you're just repeating and recycling old data. Maybe it's new to you, but it's still someone said it somewhere. It was written 6,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. It does not matter. Still not coming from your own innate experience. Still coming from someone else or somewhere else. Maybe it's still coming from me. These are pointers. What I can give you is pointers and inspiration, and of course, certain foundational clarity. But essentially, if you're talking about experience and realization, it has to be done by you, experienced by the individual. And one cannot experience all this if they cannot stand confusion, they cannot stand uncertainty, they cannot, sit with the unknown. You have to. The whole notion of spirituality is to go into the unknown. The outside world, you can find information. You have maps, Google Map telling you all these things. You have GPS, right? If you want to get somewhere on the outside, it's not that hard, honestly. Uh, you can navigate your way through with someone's help, with a map, with all these things, tools to help you. But to navigate the inner world, this is what the spiritual path is. This is what the spiritual process is.
So, what do you think is the best way for us to navigate that inner spiritual path towards seeking, our ultimate true nature? Because I think one of the downside is, this whole notion of seeking, right? People see it as something that they need to chase or strive or achieve. And that leads them to a feeling of unfulfillment and not being enough, not being complete. So what's the best way for us to show up, or what's the best way for us to navigate this whole process?
Okay.
Is it by being present, by trusting the process, or what do you have to say?
I want people to try everything first. When I say everything, I don't mean literally everything. I mean everything in and within your capacity. Okay. Some people say, oh, I have a certain affiliation towards this practice. By all means, go. I have a certain interest in this domain and this something. Go, try it out. So I want people to try, okay, in a way, everything. And once you've tried everything and you know that nothing works, then I think you're ready. You're really ready for the real thing. Because if not, you just want to jump into the so-called real thing, you will not get there because it's you're tricking yourself. The mind will constantly come up with, distractions and diversions, and hey, why not do this? You see the other person, they're doing this, that's doing so well. Hey, why not try manifestation? Hey, why not try law of attraction? Hey, why not try astrology? Why not they get you to the mind. The nature of the mind is it's never settled, it's never fulfilled. That's the nature of the mind. The mind cannot be fulfilled, right? It will keep think, even in the spiritual context, it will keep thinking of new so-called ideas and inspiration and whatever instruments to help you. Yes, the intention is there, great, but
It's almost like to fill a void also, right? They're doing all of this to fill a void within, without them even realizing it, probably.
that's why what I'm suggesting is very contradictory uh, on the surface, because on one hand I'm asking people to try everything. Okay, whatever you can get your hands on, whatever you're interested in, whatever excites you, try it. In the name of spirituality, in the name of, you know, mysticism, whatever, just try it, right? Energy healing, try it. Sound healing, try it. Whatever. Okay. On one hand, I'm saying this, but on the other hand, I'm saying once all those things don't work, then you're really ready. So Patanjali, who is the father of modern yoga, when I say modern, I don't mean the studio modern, the yoga that is being practiced in the studios nowadays. Uh, Modern yoga means thousands of years. Okay. If I say ancient yoga, then I'm only referring to the originator of yoga, Adi Yogi. So Patanjali, anyway, this sage, he started the Yoga Sutras. Okay. Dot dot dot, and now comma yoga. Of course, translated. He did not learn English. Okay, in Sanskrit, I translated it. Dot dot dot, and now yoga. What it means is, now that you've tried everything and nothing works for you, life is still same old miserable. You're still in many ways suffering. This and that. They have worked to a certain extent, but no longer bringing you or leading you to that fulfillment that you're seeking. Great. You've tried everything. Great. Now yoga. So I love this. I love this because it means once you have to taste life in all its dimensions, from the lowest to so-called highest, but not the actual highest. And now that you see nothing still works, now you're ready for the real thing, the inward thing, which is what yoga is, which is what spirituality is. Yoga at this point is synonymous with spirituality. Okay, the different aspects, different dimensions of yoga, they just signify the different paths of spirituality. Okay, so they're synonymous, at least in my language to you, right? So I think that is when people are truly ready to explore it. Then the milestones, the so-called
Yeah, what do you think about
goals
people
and
who
all those
thinks
things.
like this whole thing is something to be attained, to achieve, to chase after?
I'm okay with the word attain, okay, simply because I'm so clear. If people are allowing, I can explain, right? What's the difference between attain and achieve? At least in my language, in my perception, achieve is always outward based, outward bound, something to get, something to be done, somewhere to go. That's what achieve is. Either I get somewhere, I do something, or I have something. Okay. Attain, at least in my vocabulary and understanding, is inward, totally. So yes, we could say nothing to achieve, but I still appreciate the word attain because, first of all, Buddha used this word in the Sanskrit form. Attain means you have become it. It's not something that you achieve.
You have become it.
You have become that.
How do you become that? By realizing it?
Through the active path of different dimensions of spirituality. Okay. Now, what then I know, like, oh, come on, give the listeners a bit more, something more tangible. I know at this point, you're like, yeah, see, there are only four faculties again. There are only four faculties that you can work on, really, even in the name of spirituality, even in the name of health and well being. There are only four things that you truly have: your body, your mind, your emotions, your energies. So, like this, in yoga, this four, there are many more, but we have really consolidated them into these four paths. So if you're on the path of the body through physical action, we call this karma yoga. If you're on the path of the mind, then we call this jnana yoga. Jnana with a J, J-N-A-N-A, jnana yoga. Now, if you're on the path of the heart, means you're all about just experiencing life through your emotions, then this is bhakti yoga. If you're on the path of cranking up your energies, amplifying your energies to its peak, to its highest, then you're on the path of kriya yoga. So we have karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, kriya yoga. And of course, within them itself, it's a whole system, a whole path, a complete path. So karma yoga is a complete path by itself. So on and so forth. Jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, kriya yoga, all of them are a complete path by itself. So to put it very dryly, very simply, it's not going to sound very tasteful. Some people may come, they may say, I'm no good with my mind. I'm unreliable when it comes to my mind, and forgetful, I'm slow learner, whatever, right? I'm unreliable with my mind. I don't feel much. I'm very good with my body. So far, my body hasn't failed me. Okay? Good. Karma yoga. Some people are like, I don't know what energies are. I don't buy into all this nonsense about what energies are. No, the only thing that hasn't failed me is my mind. The only thing that I can rely on, that I know I can substantiate with my own growth, with my own process of growth, is my mind. Some people are like that, right? I mean, it's good, it's bad, right? We're not here to talk about it, but they just, their best tool is their mind. That is to say, the most reliable instrument that they have is their mind. Then, by all means, jnana yoga. Okay, this is one very dry and simple way to put it, right? Some people like, I'm no good with all this, but I just know how to love. I just know how to connect. Or they call themselves an empath, they call themselves a lover, whatever. Okay. Bhakti yoga. I'm just all about the feels. Bhakti yoga. But I'm putting it very plainly. Of course, it's a science by itself.
Yeah.
It's a whole
So all other topic
system
altogether, yeah.
by itself.
System, yeah.
Okay, it's a whole path, like I said, a complete path. Or some people, I don't care about all these things. I just know one thing, which is energies don't lie. And through certain processes, definitely yogic processes, breath work, sadhana, which is spiritual practices, then they crank up their energies. They become a master of their energies, which is a real thing, okay? You don't have to believe what I'm saying when I say energy, right? And what is keeping your heart beating? It's not your mind. It's not your emotions. You may say, yes, it's my body, but something is powering your body, including of your heart beating 100,000 times a day. Who is doing it? Is that something? For lack of word, we'll call this something energy. But this energy is highly intelligent. So you work with this energy, right? You raise your own vibration to such a peak. Then that's Kriya Yoga. So like this, there are many paths. These are just 4 widely established paths. Within them, there can be many subcomponents. So again, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different paths. Okay, some people like rituals, some people like singing, some people like dancing, some people like arts, some people like just sitting still, not doing anything, some people like reading. Those can be a path, or a supplementary path to these 4 main paths that I speak of. Yeah.
And all converges into one point,
Absolutely.
one destination. All right. So just to wrap our conversation up, Dennis, I just have one last question that I think will be beneficial for our audience listening. What are some practices or tools that one can do in their, to assist them in their spiritual growth, as they journey in this path?
Now, when you say this, I was just reminded of a little joke. Can I share with you?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So our guy was having drinks at the bar,
Mm-hmm.
and it was late past, the time that he agreed to come home to his wife. So he was just enjoying himself, having a good time, but a little too many a drink. So he puked on himself. Luckily, that's the good thing he did, right? He puked on himself. So he's like, oh shit, he exclaimed, oh shit. My wife is gonna kill me if she finds out I've been drinking and now I puke on myself.
Mm.
So the bartender has seen all this. He's very wise. He goes to the man and he says, take $20 out of your pocket. Out of your wallet. Put it in your pocket. Why? Why should I do that? When you get home, your wife sees you in such a state, you just say, someone spew it on me. Someone puke on me. And that $20, he gave it to me as compensation
Mm.
for dry cleaning the next day, right? To to clean this off. Oh, that's a good idea. So our guy went home. Okay, way past his time. He went home. Obviously, the wife got mad and why you back so late and what's all this tension? What's all this smell and what's all this nonsense? Then our guy said, "Oh, someone puked on me. Here, he gave me $20. It's his own money, but here, it's part of the whole show, right? He gave me $20. No, why do you have $40 in your hands?
Mm.
Oh, that's because he shit in my pants as well."
Oh dear.
Now, why I'm saying this is because this is how some people approach spirituality. They lie their way through.
Mm.
I'm not trying to point out, I am pointing out. Okay. I have to point out. There are people who, because they've had a certain glimpse of, experience, realization, they learn something. I don't want to call out names, but I have to. Just
Yeah.
because they learn something called Reiki healing, they
Mm.
call themselves spiritual. Or even worse, spiritualists. Like mentalist spiritualists, right?
Yeah.
Or because they learn some singing bowl thing, or because they learn some essential oils, aromatherapy, they call themselves spiritual. Please don't do that. Yes, I'm asking you on one hand to try everything, but don't attach to it. Don't identify yourself as it. The moment you call yourself, you can say with all humility, like, I am on the path of spirituality. That's fine. But the moment you say, I'm spiritual because I practice this, because I've learned this, because I can chant this mantra, because I can turn my body into a knot, then you're shitting yourself.
Mm.
Only you know whether you're going somewhere, which is the nowhere that I spoke of, because the inward journey is unquantifiable, it's non-physical. So only you know whether you're going that nowhere that I speak of, right? Only you know. Okay.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Thank
It's
you.
always a delight talking to you. And to all of our audience who are listening, let us know in the comments below, in what way has this conversation been impactful to you? What are some of your big key takeaways, and what are some of the changes that you like to make in your life right now? And if you find this podcast episode valuable, be sure to share it with your friends, family, and loved ones as well. And catch us at Awaken Soul Podcast. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and wherever podcasts are available. Also, follow us on our social media, such as Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Again, thank you everyone for listening and for playing your part in this great tapestry of life. I've been your host, Dr. Crystal Asong,
I've also been your co-host, Dennis DeVos.
and I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you,
Namaskaram.
Crystal. All right, namaskaram.